What's good? It's Wood. Whoa. So Teofimo Lopez was set to fight Jose Pedraza on December 10th. And now that Pedraza has had to pull out of the fight due to illness, enter Sandor Martin to take the place of Jose Pedraza. I think I like this matchup a little bit more than Teofimo Lopez versus Jose Pedraza. Now, we had recently heard that Lopez versus Sandor Martin was ordered by the WBC along with a bunch of other, fight mandates essentially. And the idea was, if Teofimo Lopez beats Jose Pedraza, then he fights Sandor Martin. Well, it looks like we're going right into Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin, whose, claim to fame, so to speak, is his win over Mikey Garcia. Granted, a over the hill, you could say, definitely underperforming Mikey Garcia, and a Mikey Garcia who retired shortly after that loss to Sandor Martin. One of the biggest upsets, if not the biggest upset of 2021. Sandor Martin from Barcelona, Spain. He's got a record of 40-2. His last loss was to Anthony Yiggett back in 2017. So he's won like his last 10 fights, and he's had one more win since beating Mikey Garcia, and that was a unanimous decision win over Jose Felix Jr. So, man, I like this one. And now there's a little bit of a wild card with Sandor Martin. We don't really know how high his ceiling is. We don't know if his win over Mikey Garcia had more to do with Mikey Garcia not only being kind of like uninspired, like kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and underperforming, but also Mikey Garcia competing in a weight class that he just hasn't belonged in and never really belonged in. I thought that Mikey Garcia at his biggest should have been maybe 140, but even that seemed like it was a little bit higher than would be ideal for Mikey Garcia, whose best years were at 126, 130, 135 was probably his A-level performance ceiling, even though, we all wanted to see what would happen if Mikey Garcia fought Josh Taylor or Regis Prograis, especially when it became clear that the Mikey Garcia versus Vasily Lomachenko showdown would never take place. Unfortunately, super missed opportunity. That would have been a great legacy fight for both guys. But Mikey Garcia, yes, he did beat Sergey Lipinets at 140. And yes, he did, to his credit, get a win over Jesse Vargas via decision at 147. He even dropped Vargas in that difficult fight, but a fight that Mikey Garcia, pulled out by a round or two, basically. But we still don't know if Martin's win over Garcia was more a testament to how good Sandor Martin is rather than how uninspired and over the hill Mikey Garcia was. So we're going to find out a lot of things with Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin. This is kind of, the type of test I would like to see Teofimo Lopez in as he kind of marches up the rankings of his new division, 140. He still only has that one 140-pound fight against Pedro Campa. And in that fight, Teofimo Lopez scored the 7th round TKO. So Teofimo Lopez, one of the most sensational young fighters in the game, 25 years old, still only 25. And, I did like the idea of Teofimo Lopez versus Jose Pedraza, but I feel like this one against Sandor Martin is a little bit more interesting because I just find Jose Pedraza not to be a shot fighter or anything. Like, he's not getting stopped. It just seems like he's getting more beatable. And, most recently, Richard Comey just made, his entry into the 140-pound decision, and he just fought to a draw with Jose Pedraza, and Teofimo Lopez knocked Richard Comey out in the 2nd round, and that was what actually earned Teofimo Lopez his first 135-pound title. He secured the IBF belt in that knockout win over Richard Comey. So because of the kind of the wild card factor, and granted, I don't know that Teofimo Lopez was going to beat Jose Pedraza, but I feel like if there was a time for Teofimo Lopez to beat Pedraza, it would pretty much be right around now. Jose Pedraza recently lost via decision to Jose Ramirez, lost, a few years back to Lomachenko, got stopped earlier than that by Gervonta Davis, and then fought to that draw with Richard Comey. And then a few fights before all that, he had lost to Jose Zepeda, who's about to be in a great, I can't wait for Regis Prograis versus Jose Zepeda for the vacant WBC 140-pound title. And I feel like there's a high likelihood that the winner of Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin, because it was a WBC mandate, will get the shot against the winner of not so much Regis Prograis versus Jose Zepeda, because the winner of that is supposed to fight Jose Ramirez. So the winner of Prograis versus Zepeda versus Jose Ramirez is probably going to fight against either Teofimo Lopez or Sandor Martin, especially if Teofimo Lopez wins that. So this is going to be interesting. And, you know, there is a little bit of similarity between Sandor Martin and Jose Pedraza. Jose Pedraza, at his best, is a pretty elusive fighter. Sandor Martin was pretty damn elusive against Mikey Garcia and is generally a very good, kind of a sweet scientist. Move this way, then move this way. Have good timing in your counter punches. You know, stay very light on your feet type of fighter. So there is a little bit of that overlap. And also, Sandor Martin is a southpaw. Jose Pedraza is ambidextrous and often fights from a southpaw stance. So I think that as the plot thickens, I like the idea of Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin. And I can't wait to do the preview of this fight as we head into the days, and if not, probably a week to 2 weeks heading into the actual fight date. I'm going to do a proper preview of that. But yeah, I do like the idea of Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin. Again, because one, the wild card of Sandor Martin, we don't really know how good he is and how good he could be. And we also don't know if Teofimo Lopez's goodness/greatness at 135. Granted, it was still a relatively small sample size, but I mean, he did beat Vasily Lomachenko and he did knock Richard Commey out. But we don't know if his abilities and his skill set can fully, and his power, his punching power, can fully carry into the 140-pound division. So now this is going to be his second fight at 140. So I think that, fight over fight, he's going to get more acclimated to the division. The question is it going to be enough to beat a pretty tricky Sandor Martin, who has competed as high as 147 in that fight against Mikey Garcia? But again, it was against a small, very small 147 Mikey Garcia. So yeah, let me know what your early thoughts are on Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin. I tend to believe that, I could see Teofimo Lopez catching Sandor Martin early and hurting him. If he could stop Sandor Martin, that's a huge notch on his belt. Not because Sandor Martin is some world beater, but because at this moment, Sandor Martin is kind of seen as hey, maybe he is pretty damn good. We're kind of right there with him. So because of the way that his stock elevated with that win over Mikey Garcia, now is the time where beating a Sandor Martin will actually matter. But who knows? Maybe a few fights from now, once Sandor Martin has lost another 2 or 3 fights, it won't mean as much to beat Sandor Martin. But yeah, after this 10-fight win streak, it would be a pretty compelling and meaningful win for Teofimo Lopez to beat Sandor Martin right now at 140. But please, let me know what your early thoughts are. Who do you see winning this fight and how? Do you think that Sandor Martin's southpaw, kind of tricky, crafty style is going to present a lot of problems for Teofimo Lopez? I mean, generally, aside from that George Kambosos fight where Teofimo Lopez had his first and to this day only loss, if you look at the other fights that he had some difficulty with, it was Nakatani, who was just a kind of big, hard-hitting, very tall, just throwing from all kinds of angles. Yes, Nakatani has been stopped multiple times since, including, about a month ago or just under a month ago, got stopped to where I don't know what Nakatani's career is going to look like going forward. But Nakatani's style is nothing like Sandor Martin's. So it's going to be interesting to see if this kind of, sweet scientist can present some challenges for Teofimo Lopez. And yes, I would have still liked to have seen whether Jose Pedraza could really present challenges for Teofimo Lopez, especially because, Jose Pedraza is extremely durable. He's only been stopped once, and that again was to Gervonta Davis a few years ago. This is 2017 or something like that. But if you look at his other losses, they're all pretty damn close. And they're against, very hard hitters. I'm not convinced that Teofimo Lopez, for instance, hits harder than Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez stopped a then undefeated Maurice Hooker. Jose Ramirez has a close win over Jose Zepeda, very hard hitter, and Jose Pedraza went the distance with him. So the idea of Teofimo Lopez just sparking a Pedraza and putting him away, it's like, nah, there's a little bit more to it. You know, he's a pretty damn durable guy, Jose Pedraza is. So it would have, yes, still been very interesting to see Teofimo Lopez versus Jose Pedraza, but because of the freshness in Sandor Martin, this one might interest me just a little bit more. But yeah, please let me know your thoughts. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.